Welcome to the Easy Watch video for the Creative Learning Abilities Partnerships, or CLAPS project. This Easy Watch is about what we did on the CLAPS project, and it serves in a different form as a summary of the work we did. On this first screen you can see a picture, and that was the celebration event we held at the end in Cambridgeshire, and it shows all the people that were involved and that came to that event having a really good time. CLAPS. Why do it? Well, we needed to have time and space to learn together, to work in a new, creative, enjoyable way to make research design accessible for all, to build equal team partnerships, learning disabled, autistic communities and researchers, and to go on to develop future research projects together. Hi, I'm Barnaby the Barnet Bee. Hi, I'm Eunice, the Unity Centre unicorn. Mascots made the communication easier. Learning disabled and or autistic people often experience poor health and mental well-being. We need health and social care to fit lived experience. Co-design research can help this happen. So what did we do? In this project, we worked together with people with learning disabilities and or autism from two MenCap organisations, one in Barnet and one in Lowestoft. We used enjoyable creative methods to gain valuable knowledge from their experiences. These groups had not been involved in research before. We learned together to build research active MenCap groups. We learnt the value of time and trust. The pictures on this slide show us how we made decisions together in many ways, and this just shows two. One was making decisions together by voting on options. And another way we brought people's opinions in who may not want to speak out loudly was we used yes or no signs to vote too. The project was in 4 parts. A scoping review, looking at what was already known about using creative methods to work with people with learning disabilities. Part 2, we had workshops, planning how we would work together, learning what's important to health and well-being for this group of people. 3, sharing our learning. We held a big celebration event at the end in Cambridge. And 4, evaluation. What did we learn by putting this partnership together? So, what is a scoping review? It sounds quite complicated. We searched to find what had already been written about creative methods, the arts, and people with learning disabilities or autistic people in research. We talked about what we found with MenCap members during the workshops so we could learn together. It was like searching a giant library, but this giant library was on computers and online. But we searched everything that was out there using different words to search. And in the end, we found 33 articles that had been written that actually helped us understand more about what we were going to do and how we were going to plan for future research using creative methods. So we worked with Barnet MenCap and Lowestoft District Local MenCap. We had different stages of how we worked together. So the first stage was just getting to know each other, which was 4 visits where we went and joined in with what they were already doing in the groups and understanding what they enjoyed doing. Making plans together. And we had 3 workshops where we used creative methods to make plans about how we were going to work together and what we were going to do in the groups. We then went on to finding out what was important to them about their health and well-being, and we also did that in a creative way, which we'll talk about later. And then the final 4 workshops were about making sense together, so understanding more and getting an idea about what was important about people's health and well-being and what they might like to research in the future with us. So, the workshops, the getting to know each other workshops, we joined them in their activities, including art, music, gardening, and cooking. In Lowestoft, we did a bit of karaoke singing in the interludes, as we called them, between the work that we were doing and the creative methods. So one of the pictures here shows us singing Sweet Caroline together. And one of the Lowestoft members actually said, "You know what music does? It chills you out." And I think that was a really important part of having the musical bits in when we were working with both the men caps in the end, because it made a lovely break between doing the work, and we all had fun taking part in the musical bits, whether it was singing, whether it was dancing along, whether it was doing some karaoke, or the drum workshops as part of what the Lowestoft group were already doing. In Barnet, we saw that they were really happy growing together in the gardening group, helping hands. So the picture shows it's a gentleman with autism helping 2 people with learning disabilities by giving them the seeds so they can then plant them in the soil that's already been prepared. And in the background is one of the helpers at the Barnet Men Cap, and she's actually writing the labels that will be put on so they can see what grows. Making plans together was the second lot of workshops we did, and a lot of the ideas came from just looking at what people enjoyed. So at Barnet Men Cap, someone said, "We like playing bingo. You should write that down." And then another Barnet member said, "Breakfast was the most important meal of the day." So we created breakfast bingo. And as you can see, we've got a lucky winner there, which was one of the members of the Lowestoft Men Cap groups, and another member of the Lowestoft group at the Cambridge Celebration event, putting his counters on to see what things he actually had on his bingo card. So it worked out that everybody enjoyed the bingo, and it was a really good, fun way of all working together and enjoying ourselves. Another piece of the creative activities we did was a thing called mug shots. And in mug shots, we actually use stickers, collage, pens, and colour pencils on pieces of paper that actually inserted themselves into the plastic mugs. We took photos of people with their mugs, and we called them mug shots. And here's a few examples of the photos of people holding their mugs. We all got to take our mugs home. I've still got mine in my office. And some made videos of why they chose what they did for their mugs. and these were later shared at a conference. So as all the way through this piece of work, the idea was to find out what was important to people about their health and well-being. And the thing with every time we did anything creative, we always said that they could freely express themselves and that their stories were golden. We were interested in what they had to say. And there was no right or wrong way to do the creative methods, and we give them plenty of options of how to do it in ways which was very accessible. We grew creativities. That sounds weird, that concept, but really it's just a creative way of putting ideas together by forming leaves on a tree. We again asked the question, what's important to your health and well-being? And we wrote out the leaves for people, checking what people meant, so we had short answers. We took the two trees, because we did a session in Lowestoft and a session in Barnet, and we then combined the ideas, and we came back to the workshops and did a further workshop where we recapped what we found out. And so that's a picture of us doing that workshop in Barnet, and then we went back to Lowestoft and did the same thing. We climbed mountains. Now that sounds really strange. When we walked into the workshop and they said, and we did a recap on what we did last time, as we always did, and then we said what we were going to do in this session, and we said we were going to climb mountains. We didn't tell people how we were going to do that, but we did say we wouldn't leave the room, so we didn't. So we built two mountains, Mount Healthy Body and Mount Healthy Mind. And we just asked 4 questions. This picture shows Mount Healthy Body. So the questions we asked were, what were the challenges to actually getting a healthy body? Who is needed to help us when we have those challenges? What needs to happen to help us get a healthy body? And what difference will it make to us when we actually have a healthy body? And in this way, we created what was called logic models. So our MenCat members' ideas were presented in ways we could develop research together. So we then had a celebration event, which was part of the sharing our learning part of the partnership building work. So everyone could be involved who came, and we shared our experiences, and then we had a party with Ryan being the DJ, and he was one of the MenCat members from Lowestoft, and he worked with his friend Hayden, and they were actually the DJ for the party, and we produced a playlist, so everyone that was involved was allowed to suggest songs, and we put playlists together. So again, it was all people's ideas were valued. We talked about the project. Before we actually did this event, we asked the members what makes a good party. And one of the suggestions were, we need balloons at a party. That was from one of the Barnet members. And as you can see in the picture of when we were presenting things, we had very large and brightly coloured balloons. Food was mentioned as needed in a party. And because both groups really loved their music, there was obviously dancing and singing together, and we had that via the 2 DJs. And what we did in the next slide. So Jax, the person who runs the Lowestoft MenCat, does music workshops, and they've even performed at the London Palladium and the Royal Albert Hall as part of the Music Man project. So we thought that would be a good thing to bring along so the Barnet members could have a go as well. So this picture shows Lowestoft Jack's doing what she does best, having fun through music, and everyone could join in. And this picture showed us all joining into "We Will Rock You" by Queen. Even the team had a necessary silliness and fun which was needed to do this work. So the other picture shows some of our claps team at the celebration event. Yes, a bit of necessary silliness. We all have to let our hair down, even Fred, our, our research person who helped me out through all the workshops, and I couldn't have done it without him. So part of the whole idea of claps was celebrating our abilities, moving away from disabilities. So, what are we creating to share from this work? Accessible outputs, including this easy watch for different audiences. Some blogs, because we actually bought some podcast equipment as part of the research. So we started doing podcasts and blogs, and we went on to do presentations at conferences. This one was me and Fred doing a presentation at a creative conference at the University of Hertfordshire. We are writing journal articles about the scoping reviews and what we'd learned about how to do this sort of work from looking at what had been done previously, and also a journal article about the whole project and how do you build partnerships using creative methods. So, what differences have we made so far? Well, Lowestoft MenCap members are making weekly podcasts with equipment funded by this project. Barnet MenCap are buying drums for music making inspired by Lowestoft MenCap's group and plan to visit Lowestoft MenCap to continue their friendships. We are applying for more funding to continue CLAPS, and at the point of this recording we have gained a small amount of funding to do some more workshops to work out what's important and to start getting ideas for putting the research application in together, because right from the beginning this is working together to create research in partnership. So this is just a contact slide. So it says me. I can be available on my email. And Julia Jones, who was co-lead on the project, there's a picture of her there, and you've got her work email at Hertfordshire University. This piece of work was done by Hertfordshire University with funding from the National Institute of Health and Care Research, and it included Barnet MenCap and Lowestoft and District MenCap and the Hertfordshire Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust. Plus we had help from Hertfordshire Council, and we thank them for that. I'd just like to put this last slide in because unfortunately we lost one of our really valuable members of Lowestoft MenCap. So this is in loving memory of Sarah Tuttle, who was a very active member of Lowestoft MenCap in this project. So rest in peace, our angel. So this I've presented on behalf of the CLAPS team. That's myself, Amander Wellings, Fred English, Julia Jones, Elspeth Maffey, Helena White, Caris Bontoff, Fabe Riley, Sam Bishop, Rose Goodman, Jacqueline Guyton, Sian Harding, and Isabel Simmons. Many thanks to all the MenCap members, because we couldn't do it without you, and that's the whole idea. Research shouldn't be done without you. Thanks to Hertfordshire County Council for their help and support and helping us put together easy read things and chairing the advisory group. Thanks to all those who sat on our advisory group. You gave us some really, really good advice throughout, so thanks for that. So the funding was funded by the NIHR, and it was supported by the National Institute of Health and Care Research Applied Research Collaboration for the East of England, otherwise known as the ARC, and Cambridge and Peterborough NHS Foundation Trust. The views expressed are those of the authors and not necessarily those of the NIHR or the Department of Health and Social Care. Thank you so much for watching this.